All right. If anyone in the chat can hear me, just push 1. All right, got the confirmation. Thank you for that confirmation. Welcome back to the Black Brain Trust. This is episode 548, Black Tech Talk. Please hit the like button as you come in, share the video if possible, and hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust, including those posted on the community tab. There's a doc in the description beneath the video for you to follow along with. If you want to engage in this discussion, there'll be a link in the chat for you to click on. When you click on the link, make sure you raise your hand so that one of us can acknowledge you and advance you to the panel. Let me drop the link. Also, as an FYI, if you're trying to get into IT for the first time, we do offer IT mentorship here. If you're trying to go from one IT role to another, we do offer IT coaching. If you have any questions about cover letters, resumes, salary, wages, we offer advice in that area as well. Leave your comments at the end of the live stream or say something in the chat and then one of us can acknowledge you and get back to you. I want to start off something I came across earlier this week that came out, and I thought it was very interesting. Let me see if I can find it. And we've covered this before last year, but people have been asking about it again. So I wanted to make sure that we followed up for 2020 with some of this discussion. So just give me a second because I actually lost the video. And I thought this was very interesting. We'll watch a snippet of it. Yeah, we'll watch a snippet of it and then we'll go into it. I'll give you some of my analysis on this as well. So let me start with the first item on the docket and give a shout out to the people in the chat who first showed up. Q497, PCU, Black Scorpion, peace. Ronin Black, peace to you as well. Let me make one more adjustment and then we'll get started with the first item on the docket. All right, first item on the docket is from Fast Company. Forget learning to code. There's an easier way to fill coding jobs. It seems that if you want to invest in the future, you should learn to code. The importance of computer science education is everywhere you look. whether it's boot camps that retrain blue-collar workers as a hedge against their jobs looming automation, or guidance counselors who advise students on the highest paying majors, or even children in primary school creating book reports in augmented reality. In spite of these efforts, there is still a dramatic shortage of software developers. The digital world, in which the average American spends over 3 hours of their day, is brought to us by only about 4 million software engineers. Only about 1% of the population can write code. One way to address this demand is by leaning further into the education efforts of organizations like code.org. Teach more people to code, encourage more students to major in computer science. There is, however, another option. We can make coding easier. Creating software is as difficult today as it was 50 years ago when the internet was invented. Most of the innovation we've seen has been in areas focused on supporting the scale and constraints of giants like Google and Facebook, but emerging trends have the potential to upset the order. The rise of mini apps, bite-sized pieces of instantly available content built on the open web that bypass the fragmentation and distribution headaches of the App Store and Google Play Store, are leading us into a post-App Store world. This is rolling out alongside super app platforms like WeChat and KaiOS, and new technologies like progressive web apps. The apps of the future will not be downloaded from an app store, but rather via interactive posts discovered inside these super apps. Alongside this miniaturization of apps is the commoditization and availability of cloud computing. Before you might have to lease space in a data center and purchase physical hardware at a sizable cost, today you can spin up a new server in seconds for pennies. This is enabling new and growing generation of digital natives capable of using increasingly complex and powerful creation and business tools such as Airtable and Coda to spark a movement where anyone and everyone can design. These trends point forward toward a few approaches to make it easier to create software. The most common approach is in the wild is the creation of specialized tools and infrastructure to create and deploy a very specific type of app. We see this with stores on Shopify, donation pages on GoFundMe, and blogs on Medium. These structured platforms allow for easy replication and customization of a single type of app. You can think of it as remixing an app, be it fundraising, e-commerce, or a dedicated blog. While these tools are powerful, easy to use, and oftentimes the best solution for a specific class of problems, they are fundamentally limited at a creative level. You can't, for example, use Shopify to create a video game. Addressing the limitations of these rigid platforms is the rise of no-code and low-code tools. These tools attempt to transform lines of compute code into blocks and shapes that can be dragged, dropped, and connected to create an application. Some of these tools are quite powerful and valuable, allowing ordinary people to build complex pieces of software without ever seeing a line of code. However, they are constrained by the types and levels of abstractions made available by their developers. In order to bypass these constraints and push the limits of these tools, projects often become as complex, if not more complex, than they would be if they were simply written in code from the beginning. These proprietary tools also bring with them issues of vendor lock-in and bit rot, leaving hopeful creators stranded with no export or migration path. In the event the service shuts down and changes direction. This is the case with Google App Maker, whose shutdown next year will leave all apps on the platform unusable. So I don't want to really go too deep into this, but the point of the matter here is this. We're coming to a point where low code and progressive web apps are taking place at a faster rate, especially due to the pandemic. People are able to push out new apps and services to potential customers and existing customers and customer base, so that they can have a better interaction and that there's no app store locking. Okay, so you're not locked into one platform or the other. You know, sometimes I remember back in the early days, 2010, 2011, there were apps for Apple's for the Apple App Store, and then there was apps just for Google, right? There was always a difference in how the apps operated, but now we're getting to the point with the latest web browser, Chrome or Firefox. You can push progressive web apps down to the user. Okay, you can create a blog and have it installable as long as the user clicks OK to install this app. The app is probably no more than 64 kilobytes. That's not a lot of line of code, and that's not a lot of data to push down. So now you're talking about changing the ball game with just a few clicks. Okay. What's going on, TD Burns? And so because of that, it's imperative that people in this community learn to code even at the most basic level from an app development perspective. Let me go into the next item on the docket. I think this is interesting as well. I wanted to share this as well. All right, this is from Wired.com. Python is more popular than ever. Despite a rocky transition from Python 2 to Python 3, developers are still flocking to the programming language. Python is one of the world's most popular programming languages. In fact, it's more so than ever. Python climbed from third place to tie for second in the latest ranking of programming language popularity, published by the analyst firm RedMonk. It's the first time that a language other than JavaScript, which remains number one in the firm's rating, or Java, the other runner-up, has entered the top two since RedMonk started compiling its ranking in 2012. That milestone is all the more significant given a sometimes rocky transition from the second version of Python, which the language's developers stopped supporting this year, to the third version. RedMonk usually doesn't make much of small rankings changes. Co-founder Stephen O'Grady writes in the report, but it's rare to see any sort of movement in the top tier of programming languages, which consists of well-established languages. JavaScript is the primary way developers run code inside the web browsers and is also increasingly used for other purposes, ranging from mobile and desktop app development to programming drones. Java, meanwhile, is the standard language for writing Android apps and is a corporate software development mainstay. So those are the differences in penetration into the market between Java and JavaScript. Python's continued success wasn't a given. The long transition from Python 2 to Python 3 in particular could have shunted developers everywhere or elsewhere. Python 3 was first released in 2008, and the team initially planned to stop supporting Python 2 in 2015. Meaning there would be no further bug fixes and security updates from the official project, but they extended that deadline to 2020 when it became clear that many developers would need more time to update their code to the newer version. During that time, developers could have opted to switch to a new programming language like Mozilla's Rust, Google's Go, or JetBrains Kotlin. Meanwhile, newer programmers could have opted to learn the more widely used JavaScript, or been turned off by confusion over what tutorials, code samples, and open source code libraries would work with each version of Python. But if Python lost any developers due to transition, it appears to have more than made up for the new converts. O'Grady cites Python versatility as one reason for its ongoing popularity. Companies like Google, Dropbox, and Instagram all rely heavily on Python, as do countless smaller ventures. It also has a home in academia as the preferred data crunching language of many scientists and mathematicians. RedMonk ranks programming languages based on two criteria: the number of questions asked about each language on the question and answer site, StackFlow, and the number of projects based on each programming language hosted on the Microsoft-owned service, GitHub. The idea is to spot trends in software development profession. RedMonk's assessment, at least as it relates to Python, is consistent with other measures. According to the survey by StackFlow, Python is the third most widely used programming language, not counting HTML, behind only JavaScript and database query language SQL. The survey found Python was the respondents' second favorite language after Rust. Meanwhile, the TO index, which measures the number of search engine results for particular pages, shows Python has grown in popularity in recent years and now ranks third in the index after Java and C. There was little movement in the top 20 languages in RedMonk's latest report, but O'Grady did flag one rising star further down in the ranks, Dart. A language developed by Google jumped 9 places from 33rd to 24th in the past 18 months. Dart is a language for writing software that runs inside web browsers. Dart code translated into JavaScript, which is supported by practically all modern web browsers. O'Grady writes that its surge in popularity is probably due to its use in Google's open source programming framework, Flutter, which was released in December 2018. So we talked about progressive web apps and what a progressive web app is and how it correlates to modern day computing, okay? Progressive web apps are agnostic, they're platform agnostic. It doesn't matter if you're using an Apple phone or an Android or Windows desktop or a Mac desktop or a Linux desktop. The app is the progressive web app is installed into the browser, making the browser the base for its operation. And now we're seeing here with this article that Dart is a language for writing software that runs inside web browsers. So this is very close of moving into that progressive web app area of growth. And so that's why we're even having this discussion today. And as we get further down into the discussion, you'll start to see why this is so important. All right. All right, so let me go to the next item on the docket. This is all right, this is from Sailfish. Okay, Sailfish OS is a independent mobile OS. Okay, this is based on Linux. You know, for those of you like Linux and like open source, this is Sailfish. This is what it's built off of. Okay. If you look at it, you know, the screenshots make it look pretty good. It's almost Android-like. The mobile OS solution for corporations and governments, the European alternative to dominate in mobile operating systems. Sailfish OS is flexible, adaptable, and secure, ensuring that all data remains fully in your own control. Sailfish is managed and developed by a European mobile company, Jala, which has a strong heritage in Nokia and MeeGo OS. You have to go real far back to really remember what Migo is. For those of you who remember, the days of the Palm. The only mobile operating system offering a regional licensing model. Sailfish offers governmental and corporate customers a comprehensive solution which can be adapted to specific customer needs. It is the perfect solution from building mobile payments, banking, secure communications, and corporate solutions, as well as citizen services. Okay, this is important because when we start talking about going global, Apple and Google both have strong dominance in mobile operating system ranking, but as things start to change in the economy and people want cheaper devices because they need to have them in Latin America, Africa, and central parts of Asia, this becomes important. Okay, you may not need an iPhone, you may not need that fancy Android Samsung Galaxy. You may just need a basic touchscreen phone at the bare minimum that if you only make $1 a day, a year's salary may be spent on a device. That device becomes important. But how do we engage that sort of market, right? That market is based on the necessity of computing, mobile computing. It's not really about who has the most fanciest camera or the most fanciest screen display. It's really based on utilization.
Right, we're talking about function over form.
Yeah.
What's going on, Mike? The Sailfish OS, that's what that was right there?
Yeah.
Is that just the OS or is this a device also?
No, it's an OS. You can build it on top of a device.
You can build it on. You can load that. You can stack that on any device, basically.
Yeah, as long as the device has the necessary hardware specs. So
okay.
If we were pulling a device out of China, if we ordered 100,000 devices, we could actually
or Rwanda for that matter. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. Anyway, just speaking specifically from mass production perspective, it would have to make sense, right? And so. I read this a few seconds ago, but
No, I was listening.
Yeah. I'm just reiterating to
okay.
to people. So Sailfish OS offers governmental and corporate customers a comprehensive solution which can be adapted to specific customer needs. It is the perfect solution for building mobile payments and banking secure communications. Okay. Mobile payments, cryptocurrency, digital currencies, banking, micro banking, micro investing, micro payment systems, okay? Micro banking, mobile banking, secure communication, encrypted like WhatsApp, like Signal, and these other sort of platforms. That's what this OS is really geared towards. And that's why we talked about earlier, progressive web apps. Where does all of this fall into place? Well, progressive web apps will run right on top of this as long as the browser is compatible. Firefox, Chrome, BAT, okay? The Brave browser, I mean, okay? This means something now. Sailfish is compatible with many form factors. The same core OS works in big TV screens, tablets, smartphones, and watches. So the Sailfish OS UX or user experience can be fully tailored to different customer needs.
Wait, you can run this on watches also?
Yeah.
Oh.
An example is the specific UX done for Russian Post. So Sailfish is compatible with Android ecosystem in both application and hardware adoption levels.
Oh, really?
Yep. Android apps can be used in Sailfish OS. However, it is fully independent and not a derivative or a fork.
That's what I was just about to ask that. Is this like a fork of Android or something? But no, it's not.
No. So,
okay.
Sailfish licensing customers choose if they wish to use or not to use the Android application compatibility part of the OS. So what they're talking about here is you have an OS that is completely independent, but it can also adapt to Android's application ecosystem.
So okay, let me get this right. It doesn't, you don't load it on top of Android.
This is a
Okay.
clean install.
Okay, so it's okay. Explain. So where is the? I'm trying to get where the Android compatibility is coming in, right? Because if you're wiping it,
because it's Linux.
Oh, okay, I see. So basically, we're talking about basically the architecture,
application compatibility is determined at the root level.
At the root level. Okay, I follow now. Okay, go ahead.
Yep. Sailfish OS has matured to Sailfish 3. Sailfish OS has matured to its third generation. Sailfish 3 offers a packetized solution for various corporate environments and a smooth and secure mobile OS for consumers looking for an alternative. Okay.
Me likey. Is this now a Sailfish? Is it open source? What's the scoop on?
It's basically open source.
Okay, that's
but
another
it's spun off from Java.
Right.
Yep.
And I assume there's also, well, I'm not even going to assume. Obviously, if it's open source, there's an enterprise application that you could purchase.
Right. That's what we were talking about right here. Right. So, right. Secure communications and corporate solutions, so enterprise, as well as citizen services. So, if I'm a tech developer or something like that, and I wanted to make sure that South Sudan, I have penetration into that market, I can develop a device around this, around the OS and tailor it to the needs of those people. Okay. I can have penetration into those markets with this OS.
That's what I really like about this.
Mm-hmm. Sailfish 3 adds a host of new features and improvements to the user experience. The OS has a new, fresh look, a new top menu, new keyboard gestures, new camera functions, data encryption improvements, and USB on-the-go storage, just to name a few. The third generation also brings clear improvement to the OS performance, the written way to launch apps and load views, and the upcoming Qt upgrade improves the UI or user interface performance significantly. So it has that Android look to it, but it's not exactly Android.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at it, and that's why I was kind of curious about it. Like, is this a fork? And you were like, no, it's its own thing. It just basically is compatible at the root level. So, I understand how we would naturally have sort of like that Android feel. Now, what I wanted to ask you, Mike, because, we had an interesting conversation yesterday on the economics live stream, right? About like crypto payment disbursements and things of that sort. Now, my question to you is, do you think this would be part of that scenario that we were painting yesterday in terms of like how you go from a government implementing cryptocurrency as a form of a payment disbursement, right? And then you have, which is essentially, a government, or let's just say it kind of has the software to administer digital digital disbursements from the government, right? I'm trying to make sure I get this, I say this right? So this would be a smartphone-based solution, much like how in China, Africa, and other countries where they do a lot of like mobile payments and and all of that sort of thing. We're looking at something like this where this now becomes how Social Security may be actually dispersed to people, or other types of EBT, maybe, for example, right?
Right. As long as you build the payment system with the necessary within the necessary guidelines of the OS, you should be able to harness that sort of ecosystem, not that sort of application development. right? So
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of seeing, like where you go with something like this.
well, so how I would approach something like this is that I'm not necessarily storing the critical sensitive information on the device itself, even though it's encrypted.
Right.
I as a developer, I don't want the user to be at a loss, right? So I'm going to give the user a private key, and I'm going to put a public key in the cloud, and I'm going to make sure
Right.
that device,
Exactly.
I'm going to make sure that that device connects to that instance that's already been spun up in the public cloud.
Exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
I'm going to make sure that the critical financial information is available from a municipal standpoint on the government's end, but the user just receives that payment and then does what they need to do, and then
Exactly.
after 90 seconds, after 90 minutes, that stuff is just wiped out, right?
Exactly.
Therefore, bad guys don't get access to it. User loses their device. It doesn't matter. They spin up a new device or they go get another device and they connect by putting their key, their necessary information, password, 16 characters, whatever it is, biometric, thumbprint, something like that.
Yeah, like the Touch ID or Face ID or some shit like that.
Right. So now you're building, now you're building that mobile payment system correctly, where it's compliant with global standards, right?
Right.
So the only way something like this, could really be corrupted would have to be literally from the inside. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah. Building Latin America's tech independence with Sailfish OS. So this is how they're thinking. One of the greatest motivators to start the project for the Jala Group, the Sailfish licensing partner in Latin America, was the simple fact that Latin America has been technologically dependent and an importer of technology for a long time. Jala Group wanted to change this and announce the beginning of Sailfish OS based project in early 2017. This is only a couple of years ago. So you see that there's a necessity to become technologically independent. Progressive web apps, okay, not being completely dependent on platform, okay? It's agnostic. It doesn't care if it's Android or Apple or Sailfish or KaiOS.
It just executes a function. Everything happens on the cloud or on the other side. It's not on the device side.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so we get to the bottom of the page and it says Sailfish X, the downloadable Sailfish OS. Get the Sailfish OS running on your Sony Xperia device now. So Sony Xperia is actually compatible with this. You just download the download the executable and run it on your device. Okay. There's a lot of old devices, a lot of old Android devices. That's what
I was about to say, Mike. I'm about to go dig up one of my old busted tablets, and I'm just gonna fuck around.
Mm-hmm. And that's what this is about, right? Africa has 1.2 billion people as of 2019. Okay. We don't know the actual figure because there's no real way to measure the population of the continent at this point, other than what numbers have been already submitted, according to United Nations. You have 600 million plus Africans who rely on their mobile device. You have dumb phones, you have feature phones, you have smartphones. Not everybody can afford an Apple iPhone. It would be nice, but that's not always the case. It's a luxury to a lot of people. Okay. Android is the dominant player, and then come in KaiOS. Okay. KaiOS is another operating system we'll get into in a few seconds. Why is all of this important? It's because application development on the mobile side becomes important. Okay. Now let me pull this video up. This came out this week, so I want to make sure that people understand. This isn't an old video. This is something that came out a few days ago. Very important. Listen to what this person, Aaron Fu, is saying.
Everyone, welcome to another edition of Enabling Tomorrow. I'm Tim Metz. I'm the marketing director at KaiOS, and today I'm here with Aaron Fu. Aaron, can you introduce yourself?
Hi guys, as Tim mentioned, my name's Aaron, and I like to think of myself at the intersection of investing in startups, running my own, and building ecosystems to support them.
That sounds great. Can you first start by explaining us how you got to there from your youth to now, to this point, in a few minutes, maybe like some highlights of your career?
Yeah, sure. So I actually built my first technology business when I was about 13, 14. And so I've always been fascinated at the power of technology to be able to, deliver services. And then, I think thinking about impact, when I was in college, I remembered, doing a lot of these microfinance courses that Axion was providing. So always had, a fascination for, how we're able to think about creating systems for the underserved as well. And then I was also really lucky early on to be able to join an organization called ISEC that was all about sending people to different countries for different experiences. And I really sort of got the bug for, landing in a new place and figuring things out and being able to build something there. So those were some like really early formative experiences. Through those organizations, I was actually able to land like my first job outside of Australia. That was in the Czech Republic, and that was with Société Générale. So my first job out of college was in a country where I didn't speak the language, in an industry where I didn't have any previous experience, and that was like amazing. It was really, really cool. I made some of my best friends there, and it really taught me the importance of putting yourself out of your comfort zone and seeing what you can build there. And I think, ever since then, I've always been trying to put myself out of my comfort zone. And for a long time, I've been trying to get to Africa. And, not just because of the tremendous opportunity that I saw there, but also because of like all the great stories I heard about, the people, the culture, and everything happening on the continent. My roommate for a while when I was in high school was actually from Uganda, and so we always got used to share stories. And so it was really, really great to map out a strategy to figure out how I could get to Africa. And so getting to land there about
before we go in more detail to Africa, because I would love to hear about that. But I'm curious about a few things you said. You said you started a business when you were 13 or 14.
Now, I played that clip because this happened a few days ago. He said, "Get out of your comfort zone," and I wanted to get to Africa. Okay.
Whoa, say that again.
Hey, he said it. He said, I wanted to get out of my comfort zone, and I wanted to get to Africa.
I didn't hear that. Play that again. I'm only being funny. Yeah, that's exactly what he said. But a lot of people here saying they don't like you over there, though.
Yeah, let me just play that again so people understand what I'm talking about.
But also because of like all the great stories I ever since then, I've always been trying to put myself out of my comfort zone. And for a long time, I've been trying to get to Africa. And not just because of the tremendous opportunity that I saw there, but also because of like all the great stories I heard about, the people, the culture, and everything happening on the continent. My roommate for a while when I was in high school was actually from Uganda, and so we always got used to share stories. And so it was really, really great to map out a strategy to figure out how I could get to Africa. And so getting to land there about
before we go in more detail to Africa, because I would love to hear about that. But I'm curious about a few things you said.
This is a Singaporean man saying this, okay? Singaporean man saying this.
There's no African in this conversation.
Yeah. And he talked about, and not only he talked about the people and the culture, just not technology.
There's not a single African in this conversation.
It was something funny. I read Nostradamus years ago. Nostradamus is really crazy. This guy was supposed to have predicted all kind of things that have gone on. Some believe in him, some don't. But in the end of his read, he said, "Power will turn to the brood nations." and the brood nations were the black countries. He predicted this himself. Nostradamus predicted that shit's gonna be popping off in Africa, y'all. I said this shit 500 years ago, and this is how it's going down. And I'll be damned if we're not starting to see some of that. This is Singaporean talking about the culture or how it's popping off over there, and he's got to get in that piece. And Negroes are sitting here saying, "Fuck Africa, you finish, you highly finish."
Yeah, let's keep the language down. The thing is, KaiOS is the dominant operating system on the continent. It's the dominant operating system. That's what the discussion is based off of. Okay, KaiOS development. What is KaiOS? KaiOS is the mobile operating system, feature based operating system. It's not a smartphone, but it's a feature phone. That's the mobile phones. 2 out of 3 mobile phones on the continent actually have KaiOS on it. It's not really an iPhone or Android for that matter. There's a lot of Androids over there, but KaiOS is the dominant operating system on the continent. And so what I wanted to do was, what was the item on the docket about KaiOS? Oh, here it is, okay. This is from Fast Company, okay? How KaiOS is beating Apple and Android to the next billion cell phone users. Its phone sells for as little as $15, but run WhatsApp, YouTube, and more.
Damn.
Okay, this is important. KaiOS is the most popular mobile operating system you probably haven't heard of. Instead of designing software for full-blown smartphones, Hong Kong-based KaiOS Technologies has exceeded 150 million global users by powering what it calls the smart feature phone. Far more Spartan than iPhones and Samsung Galaxy models, these devices, which sell for as little as $15, run must-have apps such as YouTube, Google Maps, Facebook, and WhatsApp, with more available from the KaiOS App Store. KaiOS' success in India, where it's the #2 mobile platform after Android, Indonesia, Rwanda, and Nigeria, has now piqued the interest of US corporate giants. In 2019, Google participated in the company's $50 million Series B round, adding to the $22 million it had already invested. And Disney struck a deal to bring its characters to KaiOS phones in the form of games, wallpapers, and ebooks. This is a key strategy for many of the largest companies. Reaching the next billion users, says KaiOS CEO Sebastian Codeville. Today, the only way to reach them is with KaiOS because these users cannot afford a smartphone. Yeah, this is important. This is important. If people can't afford smartphones, what kind of phones are they going to use? They're going to use a KaiOS-based phone, a feature-based phone. So now you have to start thinking about application development around these sort of platforms. Progressive web apps are agnostic. They don't care about which platform it's on as long as the platform is functional. You're going to say something?
Well, I think if you're going to, this is going to be a huge market in Africa. I would think just because of a cost of something like this. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's the #1 platform in Africa right now for 2020.
Yeah. Now, would this also be exceedingly widely applicable in Asia as well? Because I would think a lot of Asian countries would be the same way.
Yeah, in India, like the article is saying, India actually has a large user base of KaiOS users over there. So, and then we talk about Sailfish OS being that emerging technologically independent operating system that can be applied to most devices. Okay, if it runs Android, it can pretty much run Sailfish OS and not be dependent upon westernized systems that could cut you off in the event that they put sanctions on your country. i.e. China, with Huawei. So now we're talking about, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Mike. Go ahead. I was just agreeing with you. Go ahead.
So now we're talking about being strategic in fourth industrialization, right? Cyber connected systems, IoT. Sailfish runs on smartwatches. It runs on smart TVs. It runs on IoT devices. It runs on.
That right there, man. That blew my mind because, I mean, there's so many smart, like, wearables. That's what they call them, wearables.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many of these things on the market now, and you could load. I mean, damn.
Yeah.
Anything that's Android compatible, basically.
Complex.
Yeah.
That Mara phone you have, this would be absolutely compatible, wouldn't that?
Yeah. Based on what. That's why I was kind of probing Mike a little earlier about it, because it's at the root level. So I could technically load Sailfish onto the phone and test it out. I was just telling Q in the chat, I think my only concern, and it really doesn't matter because I can always load Android back onto it, is just whether Google Fi would still work on it or not.
Well, see, I don't know if the Android bootloader is locked on the Mara phone. I don't know. It might very well be if it's running that special version of Android.
It's Android 1. I mean, so like even there's some Samsung. There's some Samsung phones. I'm trying to remember. All of the major manufacturers have it. Android 1 runs on their Android phones that are priced between $150, $179 to $300. They run Android 1 on those phones, and then anything above that, that's when you get sort of like, it's Android, but it has all the Samsung stuff on it.
Right. But now you're talking about KaiOS.
But now enter KaiOS, where you're talking about there you go.
A $15 phone.
$15, bro.
So you're talking about someone who's in poverty in Latin America or on the continent, or in Central Asia for that matter. $15 phone might be a month's worth of salary if they make $1 a day. Okay. The goal isn't to the goal for us in this discussion isn't to take these people out of poverty, it's to connect them to where they are, right? So that you don't have this digital divide where only certain people have access to quality phones. No, we can deliver services, apps and services all the way down to that level of a demographic so that there isn't this sort of digital divide, right? And now we're actually controlling a market that has been untapped, for that matter. You have over 100 million, 200 million, 300 million people on the continent that don't have a smartphone. They just don't have it.
Yeah, I saw where in India they had they've made a laptop, a functional laptop, almost as good as what we have here, for $25. And they have that for kids who can go to school and use them, and it's not exceedingly cost prohibitive as it would be for a laptop here in the United States, where you can get one what's considerably cheap here in the United States at $500, maybe $600. Where you can get a laptop of similar ability and functionality for $30, and that exists today in India right now. So the smartphone thing is going around as well. So people are trying to make different devices that are very, very, very cost efficient for people in the developing world and in the third world. So that will be moving into the first world, because it's about education and about connectivity as well, and that's what they're providing. So.
Yeah. And see, China White in the chat. Shout out to China White. She says, she hates Android phones. She prefers her iPhone. But if you live in a certain type of village or a certain type of community, you may not have access to those sort of devices. Those are big luxury items. Okay, so it's like a Louis Vuitton bag. Looks nice, can't afford it right now. How, if I'm a farmer, if I'm a person who works in agriculture or something like that, I'm a laborer, I just need a device that connects and provides me with the most modern services possible. I need to know how to get from one location to the next with Google Maps or some other mapping system. I need to have mobile banking set up in a secure fashion so that I'm not getting hacked. My tokens, my Bitcoin or whatever cryptocurrency isn't being snatched out of my wallet, my digital wallet by bad guys, right? I need a weather app to tell me when to crop and when to plant crops and stuff like that on my farm or whatever. Okay, services, delivery services, drone services. When is that drone going to drop that package off to me in my village for medicine for COVID or something like that? These are critical sort of areas of tech that we need to be actually looking into. We got Jay on the panel. What's going on, man?
Oh, what's up, guys?
Chilling.
Hey, Jay, what's going on?
Not much. Oh, I actually used one of those KaiOS phones when I went to Madagascar. My phone, I thought it was unlocked. And I was at the airport. I was like, shit, I need a phone. So it cost like $20 at the airport. And yeah, it just came preloaded with like Facebook. It's really basic, but it has like Facebook, it had WhatsApp, I think, and a couple other basic apps. And yeah, it got the job done. It was pretty cool for $20.
Think. I mean, what you're saying is really sensible, because think about all the apps. Some people may use a bazillion and one apps for it, but how many apps do you really need to use? I mean, those are kind of like the basics.
Yeah, it just had the basic stuff.
Yeah.
Basic social media, like some news services, stuff like that. One thing I do think though, because you were talking about like drone delivery. I mean, I don't think those phones had GPS transceivers. And that probably adds like $20, $30 to the cost of manufacturing a phone.
Well, it's only a little chip that they put in there, but maybe the chip is that expensive. But I don't know. It's a small chip, and they make most of them in Germany, my understanding.
Yeah, they're pretty small, but they can be pricey. Maybe in mass production, the price is different, because I used to work for a sensor company and we used to integrate a lot of GPS in.
Wait, what's that?
No, I'm saying, so like the basic phone, like when I was using the KaiOS phone, it did not have a GPS transceiver.
It didn't have a GPS transceiver?
Yeah, that's pretty common. That's pretty common.
I mean, yeah, it's pretty common, but that's honestly, that's really more of an error in design and manufacturing, because you do have like the cellular antenna or the cellular modem that goes on there. That goes on the device. I mean, they have some that also have the GPS function in it. So really, it's a component issue.
They have something called asynchronous GPS, AGPS.
Oh, wait. What's it called?
Asynchronous GPS.
Synchronous, what is it, like software-based GPS, not hardware-based?
It leverages off of another area for GPS capabilities. So like a Fitbit doesn't have a GPS built into it, but it leverages the phone's GPS. But in this instance of the phone, it may leverage the cell phone tower, its proximity to the tower.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
But let me get into this part of the docket.
Wait, Mike, real quick. Didn't we cover something about that? So not maybe like a few months ago, but we talked about that, didn't we? Being able to use like cell towers for like geo tracking and location, didn't we?
Geospatial development.
Yeah, we did talk about that. Okay.
Well, yeah, you can with 5G, because the way 5G is developed, right, from a low band standpoint, right, you have these small access points that are in these neighborhoods to provide connectivity.
Right.
You could potentially leverage the area of these access points as a determination as to where you are.
That's what we were talking about. Now let me ask you this, and I don't mean to even digress a little bit, but check this out, right? Because just last week, Google and Apple rolled out their COVID-19
Contact tracing app?
Yeah, yeah. So aren't they using the same type of technology?
Well, they're actually leveraging your whereabouts based on.
On your, if you have no location enabled.
Yeah,
Speeding.
geolocation
Okay.
enabling.
Right. Okay.
Yep.
So you have okay. So it's an opt-in basically.
Yeah, it's an opt-in. It's an opt-in. Although people are suspicious of it, it's a necessary opt-in if you're trying to fight the pandemic, right? So this item on the docket is from Sailfish OS wiki tutorial, creating an application in Python. In addition to C++, Python is a fully supported language for developing Sailfish OS applications. It is especially suitable for those applications that have modest resource requirements. If your application does heavy duty processing, we recommend using C++ instead of Python. The UI for a Python application is written in QML and used via the Pi of the side UI library. This gives you full access to all the Sailfish Silica UI widgets. It should be noted that Pi other side only supports Python version 3. We talked about this earlier on the onset of the Hangout, the live stream, that Python 3 is ready. Okay, you should be, if you're developing in Python, you should be developing in Python version 3. So your application needs to be written in Python 3. The rest of this document assumes that you have read documentation for both Pi other side and QML. Okay. So applications, as long as your application isn't heavy, like isn't resource heavy, you can write applications in Python for Sailfish OS. Why is this important? Progressive web apps, okay? Progressive web apps are not heavily resource dependent. As long as there's a functional browser, Firefox, Opera, or Chrome, the latest version of Chrome is going to work. Anything above Firefox or Chrome 50 and above works with progressive web applications. Same thing with Opera. And so application development on a ready-made platform that's going to be technologically independent of the West or by colonialist systems means that we have complete control over the technological development of a specific area. Huawei was dependent upon Google's Android operating system. When the United States decided to cut ties with Huawei, they were left in the cold. Now they have to go build another operating system or leverage another operating system. This is a part of technological development, right? If you want to have technological influence within a certain region, this is what you would actually do. Okay, you don't really need to reinvent the wheel, so to speak. There's already Sailfish OS. There's already KaiOS. How do you develop apps that's going to be cross-platform dependent? They have to be agnostic. That's what progressive web apps come in. Let me see who's trying to get in here. So this is, I'm not a Python developer at all, so I don't really remember a lot of this language. I've only used Python briefly, but let me just look at this code real quick. Yeah, this looks like some kind of Rolodex or something like that. They're trying to import some kind of contacts into this. Doesn't really mean much at this point.
Looks like a Python interpreter.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks like they're trying to bring something in though.
Like it brings in Python and interprets it.
Yeah.
Kind of like a compiler.
Right. So I think that's QML. I think that's what this is right here, QML. So, what, no, like I said before, the reason why we're having this conversation is so that you can actually start thinking globally from a tech perspective, how this is going to play out for you in your place in the tech community, in the tech industry. We have engineering cannabis on the panel.
Hey, what's
What's
going
going
on?
on, man? Hey, what's
Hey,
going on,
what's
bro?
going on? Again, Python.
Cannabis.
Hey, again, Python. Python. A
Mhm.
good application. It's diverse and applicable in every way. And also, I was talking about the OS app, the software. The question was, one of the biggest problems are our old cell phones.
Mhm.
When we discharge them, it also creates a lot of waste. So are we looking into a way they can refurbish those old cell phones and then employ these apps in there or employ this software in there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
at that point, you can sell it, you can sell it at a low price and provide it to every individual that needs one.
Well, not only that, but I think you could also, because we're not necessarily relegating it to the realm of a feature phone, right? So, if you're taking, say, like an old, I don't know, an LG from like 5, 6 years ago, okay, it's still, from a hardware standpoint, has the capability to do more things in addition to just, things like Facebook, WhatsApp, etc. So I think there's also some buildability within it based on, say, like the refurbished device that you may be loading it onto.
And also that also helps with the GPS problem, especially if you want something with the GPS capability in it. So
Yeah, the thing about GPS is that it drains the battery if it's always on, right?
yeah,
'Cause-
that's why the refurbishment will also include battery life and all that. Because
Well,
the
oh,
goal
sorry.
will the goal will be to refurbish that cell phone to be basically capable to handle any other device, the battery power and all that.
Mhm.
And then basically you're basically solving two problems. You're providing a cheap cell phone, and you're eliminating waste being generated from that cell phone. So
Well,
that
one problem I foresee though with that is the battery itself. Like for example, if you take some old LG, like Complex was talking about, where do you find a compatible cell? Those might not even be manufactured anymore.
Well, I was going to say, I think the refurbishing comes in battery testing.
yeah,
You have to just make sure that there's certain components, right, that are drawing within a certain range of power, and that would determine whether the amount of life left in. You know what I mean? Like if it's drawing under a certain voltage, or if it's drawing under a certain wattage, then you may want to write that device off, even though it's still working.
and when I say refurbishment, I mean basically building a whole new
Building it over.
battery
So
system.
that may even, yeah, I was gonna say that may even involve replacing the battery.
Building a whole new battery system for each component.
Oh, but those form factors are quite specific. You'd have to get an entire like production
But
line.
yeah,
Well,
that's the goal. The goal would be to be a mini production line for old cell phones.
Well, I was going to say now the thing to look at also, because this is kind of one line of business that we do have, is smart devices. That's kind of where the whole Mara thing came in, right? But we also have a supplier that does basically large scale refurbishing,
Yeah.
right? You see, so there's already sources that you can go to that have like an abundance of devices that have already been refurbished. And in various states, there's some where they just get them, and what they do is they go over them, right? Because let's just say the screen was good, and let's just say what it was just a trade-in, and the phone is actually good. Okay, they put that in one pile. Then they go through another pile of phones, and let's just say these are going to be like Galaxies, iPhones, the more higher end stuff, the stuff that's worth refurbishing, because you could still then get a good price on it on the market as a used device. They'll go ahead and refurbish those. They'll replace the batteries and all that, because those batteries still remain. All the lower, cheaper end stuff, if it's not already of good quality and it's like basically just trade-in stock, then they're going to basically destroy those. They'll recycle. They'll pull all the gold out of the whatever they can reclaim out of that, and then just junk, and then just recycle the shit. So there's a method on how they go about sorting out the used devices that come in, either through basically them just being destroyed and people recycle them, or they were trade-in devices, or whatever the case may be. The dudes that are the recyclers and the refurbishers, there's a method on how they'll sort all of the shit out, and then they may even keep the ones that say, okay, well, these work, they just have broken screens. They'll dump those off to people, because people will be like, dude, I'll get those for pennies on a dollar. I'll replace the screens on them, flip them.
Well, that's actually one use case, right? Of refurbishing cell phones. We covered an article about a week or so ago about a company in the Midwest or something like that, who you can trade in your cell phone. They give you money for it. And they said they're seeing this now with COVID, right? People out of work, so people are starting to trade in their fancy phones for some cash because they're hard earned on it. Those phones go into a blockchain system. The IMEI number gets added to the system, and then when it get resold somewhere else on on a different continent or something like that, that phone is actually legitimate based on the fact that it's been certified, right? It has a screen test, it passed this, it doesn't have dead pixels and stuff like that. That's how that process is working. The other aspect is ordering in bulk. Do we go to a phone manufacturer in Taiwan that can give us the same specs as a Mara phone and run Sailfish OS on it, and we can determine all of the compatible components, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, the 4G, 5G, so on and so forth, right? As long as it has a decent battery, as long as it meets the bare minimum spec, like the wiki was just saying, as long as it's not resource heavy, Python development can actually take place. Application development can actually take place on it.
I was just asking Q, man, like, what are his thoughts on maybe me messing around and loading Sailfish onto the Mara phone? I've done basically the testing that I wanted to do on it. I've done. It works, right? Everything I wanted to do. My IoT app works on it. I got it connected to Google Fi. It works. I can swap out my Verizon SIM and throw it in here. It'll work. So it's like, I've already got that. I'm interested now. Okay, because of what you just said. Right now, we go just get blank devices. Just from the factory. Hey, dude, just give me the device. Don't load nothing on it. Just give me the built device.
Yeah. Let me go to this blog post right here from outsystems.com. Progressive web apps at the speed of low code. This is from a few months ago. We're on a mission to remove the complexity of software development while raising its quality. Our customers meet their business needs in the fraction of the time it would take them to with a traditional development methods. Last year we had made available to a number of customers a new way of distributing mobile apps, and today we are opening it up to everyone. After spending the past few months perfecting the experience, we give you extended early access to progressive web applications. So we talked about PWAs on the onslaught of this live stream. The new fast way to create PWAs provides your end users with a frictionless experience while still offering the benefits of native-like applications they came to know and love, such as a full screen experience without a web browser and push notifications. And now with our latest version, you can have a single development effort and multiply its impact on 3 different channels. Delivering a PWA is just a toggle away. So let me finish reading this. Some time ago, we wrote about PWAs, sharing our view of where they can fit in your digital strategy. We also shared some case studies of PWA's adoption. Long story short, PWAs introduce a new way of customers, employees, and partners to discover and interact with applications, removing much of the friction and roadblocks that native apps have in terms of distribution and discoverability. Additionally, by adopting OutSystems to create your application, there are at least 2 more benefits to those mentioned above. Time to market. Distribute your applications via the web, mobile app stores, and as a PWA, enabling users to start using them in whatever device right away, especially with PWAs where you won't depend on the App Store licensing and approval processes to get your mobile optimized application in your user's hands. A single
Did you say PUA or PWA?
You're an asshole. PWA. A single code base, you won't have to develop and maintain different applications for each platform. If you use OutSystems, any OutSystem mobile app can be turned into a PWA without additional development effort. Creating a PWA without systems is really simple. So let me finish reading this right here. Offline availability. Given their nature and how core elements of your application are stored in devices, PWAs allow apps to work even without network connectivity and provide a much faster and reliable experience. Why this is important. High probability, 5 or 15, 20, $25 device, I may not always have enough data available to expend, enough bandwidth available, enough connectivity available. I may need this app to work offline, okay? I'm in a rural area, my connection's spotty, but I can still use this app. And then when I connect to it, when I find connectivity, I can actually, the app will connect online and finish the process.
So it's kind of like, I don't want to call it edge computing, but kind of like that.
No, this is happening at the device level. So it, like, for example, you don't need to be on the internet to use Microsoft Word.
Right. What it'll do is it'll save it, and then when it connects, it'll update the cloud.
Mike, quick question.
Yes, sir.
In terms of connectivity, for instance, if you're in a rural area where you don't have internet connection or infrastructure for 5G is not built, how that cell phone becomes a brick. So how do you solve that kind of problem?
So now you're talking about last mile connectivity.
Because at that point, if you're doing online banking and you actually do need the internet, or you do need accessibility to the internet, and the infrastructure for 5G is not being built in a rural area, which is impoverished, how do you solve that kind of problem in terms of connectivity?
Well, just because you don't have access to 5G doesn't mean that 4G.
Or infrastructure, basic infrastructure to any connection itself.
We have to come up with a solution, right? So that part of the infrastructure, right?
Yeah, that's because I've been thinking of that for a while. Because at that point, the cell phone becomes a tool, just basically again a brick. Then how do that kind of problem? Because that should be the first problem to be solved, the ability to have access. Then you provide the tool to have access.
There are networks like the Iridium network, but like satellite communications, but quite expensive at the moment.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying, a cheap, available way to establish connection.
And that's why we talked about,
I was gonna say, what about hotspots?
Well, that's why we talked about CubeSats.
Okay, yeah, that's right. Yeah,
a CubeSat is the size of a toaster.
Yeah, it's a small box. It's a satellite.
Right. It's the size of a small toaster. We can enable connectivity, provide services right off of it, and you'll never have to worry about losing connectivity. I mean, it may be slower.
Yeah, that's the question. The efficiency.
That's what we're. But I think what we're looking at though is because it's no different than like if you lose, say, like LTE, right? Then it'll drop to whatever it's available. So this is like having a base level of connectivity. It may not be the best, but when you drop out of a service area, you still have some rudimentary form of connectivity.
Yeah, I mean, let's look at this because this is actually a good discussion. Let's look at the possibilities. What's stopping how do we improvise off of the environment as it already is? How do we throw up a 20-foot antenna out of a shipping container and put the necessary system controls in it, right? The the routing and the switching and so on and so forth, and relay 3G, 4G back to that last mile. That's possible. You could do that with 5G right now. If you look at the 5G white papers, that's actually available. You can actually develop something like that.
It's possible, but the question is, in terms of areas that can't afford it, in terms of, is it possible to go and basically go to every rural area and install something like that? Because don't get me wrong, I've been trying to research it and looking into it. Basically, resources or materials, not only manpower but also actual resources.
Now, mind you, when that storm hit Puerto Rico, was that 2018 or 2017?
I think it was a couple of years ago.
Okay. Now, AT&T rolled out drone-based internet. This was another thing that we can look at. What they did was they just threw drones up in the air, and they basically kind of served as a CubeSat, but it was a drone in this instance, and it provided internet.
What about what Facebook did with the balloons?
Or balloons.
Yeah.
You can also do it yourself with software-defined radio. I saw a pretty cool project in South Africa. A guy just set up his own antenna and hooked it up to the internet and broadcast to his whole village.
And there you go.
Wait, no. Now, didn't they do that? I want to say there was a project in Detroit where a neighborhood, basically they had shit internet, and just because of where they were at and just the area and the infrastructure of what was going on, they just did not have reliable internet or ISP resources, right? So I guess some dude researched how to do just that, and then he got a few neighbors in key areas to basically duplicate the same setup, and then they created basically a community Wi-Fi.
Yeah, it's pretty. I did some research on this. There's actually open source software just for that purpose.
Yep.
For creating like local cell networks.
I know the country Israel does a community. You can have a community free Wi-Fi, but there's going to be a source or a huge source that provides that Wi-Fi, and it's connected through routers and all that.
Yep.
But the question is, that source, that huge source, is it viable in places where, again, you're trying to basically establish functionality in terms of using cell phones on financial institutions using cell phones. So establishing that kind of connectivity, again, you need human resources, again, other resources to establish that kind of, but is it feasible right now?
It may very well be, because we covered some articles before about, providing last mile connectivity, at a few $100 at best, with a parabolic antenna. I think, and that's what I think Jay might be referring to, that the SD radio, SD local area network.
I found it. It's called Open BTS.
BTS.
Open BTS. All right, I'll probably research that.
If you have the link, can you drop it in the back chat?
Yep, done.
All right. All right, let me finish going through this. Use device capabilities with no hassle. Similar to mobile applications, PWAs can access specific device capabilities. These include, but are not limited to, the device camera, location, and several other built-in sensors in mobile devices. So that's one of the benefits of a PWA. Extensibility with no limits. All out-system experiences can be customized with no limits. All systems green right out of the box. Google's Lighthouse, an open source automated tool for improving the quality of web pages, is the de facto tool for PWA validation. It runs several audits against your apps, including performance, accessibility, and especially PWA support. Following best practices, we made sure we crafted every aspect of PWAs to ensure they reach 100% compliance. So you're talking about mobile banking, like Complex was talking about earlier. You would run it against Google's Lighthouse, and that would actually certify your app to make sure that it's compliant. Okay. All right, let me get to this next item on the docket here. All right, this is from App Inventive. I think this company was purchased by I want to say it was Google or IBM, one of these one of the big ones. A beginner's guide to progressive web apps. What is a progressive web app? We know that already. Number one, it's reliable, no downloading, and doesn't need a full solid connection. Number two, it feels fast, right? The load times are very low, and it does a lot of caching. Number three, it's engaging, home screen, and immersive, and notifications. Progressive web apps take advantage of the latest technology to blend the best of both online and mobile applications. Progressive web application development is increasingly becoming the norm for the future. For businesses trying to optimize user experiences, PWAs fit right in the requirements in terms of budget, feature, and development time, and more. We develop quality progressive web apps that render an experience that is so consistent and seamless that users can't really tell the difference between a PWA and a native mobile app. So when Apple first launched the iPhone, they started this whole app war in terms of who has the most amount of apps. It became quantity over quality. Okay, you had a lot of rogue apps in both app stores in between Android and Apple.
I got hella apps.
Yeah, yeah. And so because of that, you had compatibility issues. Twitter for iPhone was different than Twitter for Android. YouTube was different on iPhone versus Android. It became very confusing to a lot of users. That's why you see so many people who do have iPhones, they can't leave the iPhone because their apps do not directly cross over to Android's application platform. What progressive web apps tries to solve is that platform compatibility. It's just agnostic. It just is, right? It doesn't care about the platform. As long as it has compatibility, it's going to work cross-platform wise. And so when we talk about $15, $25 smartphones, you have to take into consideration that this app has to work. If it works on a $25 smartphone, it's going to work on the iPhone. It's going to work on the Android phone. If it works on any one of the platforms, it's going to work on Sailfish as well.
You got to develop that thing to be bare bones, right? So that it can literally run on just like anything that has an on button and a screen, basically.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a necessary evil. I think what happens here is that, we get caught up in platforms because of the first world, but in other places, they don't really care all that much. They want to know, does this work? Uber right here, it shows 3-second load times on PWAs. Okay. Tinder, out of all applications, has a 4.69-second load time. That's actually pretty quick.
I mean, because when you swipe right, dude, it's like, come on, man.
Mm-hmm.
We need that. We need that data to transmit.
Mm-hmm. Uber's implemented PWA. Uber's implemented PWA was designed to be fast, even on 2G. So this answers engineering cannabis.
There you go right there. 2G. Look at that.
Yeah. The main app is only 50K sized.
50K. Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish.
Yeah, 50K zipped, and it takes less than 3 seconds to load on 2G networks.
Wait a minute.
This depicts how the speed of a PWA can help businesses attract users with sluggish mobile data packages. So in Africa, you don't actually pay a monthly fee for your phone. You actually buy data. You buy data, and that's why people use WhatsApp over there as opposed to over here. We don't really use WhatsApp like that.
So wait a minute. So whoa, hold on. So basically, you're just downloading a user interface for the most part.
Not so much, but you're getting the necessary functions of an application without all the fluff.
I mean, but it is stripped, dude. The file, like when you just said, the download on a 2G network. That is a very lightweight application.
Well, how many kilobytes is the Google? How many kilobytes? Yeah, how many kilobytes is the Google start page?
I mean, kilobytes?
Yeah.
I don't know how many kilobytes it is.
4.
It's 4?
4 kilobytes. That's why Google loads so fast when you go to google.com. It just loads.
Okay, I never knew that.
Yeah. So when you take that into consideration, what I'm saying here is that Google understands this, and that's why they're Google beats out Bing and all these other search engines because it's so light, right? It's not loaded with a whole bunch of fluff. And that's the way applications should be developed. You should not have all of this fluff inside of an app.
Well, I agree with that because that just leads to a whole host of other problems with the device.
Right. And so let me finish reading this real quick. According to Google, PWA installation banners convert 5 to 6 times more often than the native ones. Okay. What makes an app a progressive web app? There are some distinguished characteristics and attributes that make an app a PWA. Mentioned below are some striking progressive web app features. Progressive, I guess, Andrew Yang's face should be right there or something like that. Responsive, network independent, app-like. Okay, it's safe. Discoverable, yeah, you can search for it on your device and on the web. One of the PWA's most impressive qualities is that it's easy to update. Since no app stores act as a mediator, the users can take advantage of the updated version as soon as you update it from your end. Okay.
Wait. What do they mean by that?
Which part are you confused with?
Users can't take advantage. Say that again. Read that part.
The users can take advantage of the updated version as soon as you update it.
Okay, they can take advantage. Okay,
Yeah.
Never mind.
Yeah, you're not waiting for a beta version. It's always ready. It's always available.
Yeah, never wait for a beta male version.
Lightweight. While PWAs come with spectacular features, they are charmingly lightweight. Tinder's PWA is 90% smaller than its native app, and it cuts the load times from 11.91 seconds to 4.69 seconds. You never really notice load times on a device because it just loads, right? You're just accustomed to it loading. But on a slower device, on a feature phone or something like that, that may become noticeable. So you always want to make sure that when you develop the app, you can benchmark duration of startup, and you can actually get to a sweet spot as to where does the user become frustrated, right? You see a lot of people double click on their with their mice, with their mouse button. I see a lot of old people do this, a lot of senior citizens do this. They're always frustrated,
Oh God, don't get me started on that shit. Do not get me started on that.
Yeah, because they don't take into consideration that everything is not going to be instant. So it's always this, I need it right now, this sort of instant gratification.
Why isn't it working?
Yeah, well, that's the thing, right? If I'm in a village somewhere, I might be more willing to wait 5 seconds. I'm okay with that.
I mean, considering where I'm at, right?
Yeah, as opposed to just not having it at all. I'm waiting for 5 seconds.
I'm okay with that, dude. I remember dial up. I'm good.
Yeah.
Like,
But once we start getting into cloud and edge computing, that starts to change the conversation. We haven't really gotten to that point yet, to having that conversation, because now progressive web apps that connect to edge-based systems and process information there and send it right back down to the user, that's going to be quick. So now that 5 seconds becomes 2 seconds. Okay. Let me read this last item on the docket. I really want to pull this up real quick. I'm sorry about that. All right, this is the last item on the docket from web.dev. Progressive web apps. There is a tutorial on Google site that shows you how to build progressive web apps. And so that being said, I think if you're trying to get into tech right now, coding, like the first article mentioned, coding is going to be, should be a part of the lexicon for you. The ability to build a progressive web app is going to be critical in going forward. Okay, I'm a cybersecurity person by trade. I don't necessarily build apps and stuff like that, but if I was trying to get into the industry right now, if I was trying to get into this market, I would be looking at how to build progressive web apps going forward. Okay, unless you really want to get into like desktop support and IT support and stuff like that, that may be a different conversation. But PWAs are going to be critical. Sailfish OS as a mobile operating system. These are opportunities to start getting into high growth markets that's going to be high growth in the next few years. The article said that, well, I shouldn't say the article, but Sailfish's website mentions, let me share my screen real quick. Sailfish OS's website mentions this, that Latin America, building Latin America's tech independence with Sailfish OS. One of the greatest motivators to start the project for Jala Group, the Sailfish licensing partner in Latin America, was the simple fact that Latin America has been technologically dependent and an importer of technology for a long time. The Jala Group wanted to change this and announced the beginning of Sailfish OS based project in early 2017. I don't even know what the project is right now. This is where the rubber meets the road. IoT, feature phones, full smartphones if possible. Let me just click on this real quick, see what they're doing. Can't really. This looks like a pretty good phone, even though this is just a marketing image. It looks like a pretty good phone. Even now, like my new 5G phone, my OnePlus 8 Pro. Okay, it doesn't look all that much different than the 4G version that they released a year and a half ago, but it has that 5G capability. It's really what separates it.
That looks a lot. That even looks a lot like a Mara phone.
Yeah, I think it's a generic image, but
Yeah.
I would hope it's a generic image. But the point that I'm making here is that there's a lot of opportunity to build your own phone now.
Yep.
There's a lot of opportunity to build your own phone. And so how do we go about this? And why would we want to go about this? Why don't we just all go out and go buy the iPhone? You know, well, because the iPhone costs $1,000 now. And I can probably buy, you know, if the KaiOS phone, the feature phone is going to be $15 to $25. How many of those phones can I buy with $1,000?
Do you realize what kind of investment that is? Like,
yeah, there's a lot that needs to be taken into consideration from an economics perspective. Okay.
I mean, the business proposition in it,
Mm-hmm.
right? $1,000 for an iPhone. Or if I'm trying to bootstrap a business, right? And I take that $1,000, what do I do with it?
Mm-hmm.
I could easily chop it in half, take 500 and go scoop up, you know, a few $15 feature phones, you know, load KaiOS on it, and you know, start having some fun with it.
I think the difference with the KaiOS phones is that they're already built with KaiOS on it. But if you're talking about Sailfish, then that's a different story.
I mean, I'm sorry, Sailfish.
Yeah. And so I'm not going to play the sound from this video because I think we might get flagged for it. But I just want to, you know, run this for a few minutes to show this person is running the latest version from last month, Sailfish 3.3. I want to say this is a Sony Xperia phone.
Mike.
Yes, sir.
One of the capability I see for this kind of phone is, especially if you can build a phone for just telehealth, build a phone with IoT accessibility and also AI for just health, especially in areas where, again, rural areas, you can just give an individual a phone to just have direct contact to a health facility or something.
Yeah.
So this kind of phone, you can just build it with a health perspective in it,
Mm-hmm.
where you can contact a doctor or have quick access to a medical practitioner quickly and easy.
Yeah. Yeah. Or even building kiosks on the streets,
Yep.
the streets of the continent. You know, you could be building kiosks, you know, that have basically government services attached to it, you know.
Yeah.
This is what price right now.
So that's the goal. If you can provide, if people who don't have access to a practitioner, a physician,
Mhm.
say, hey, if you need help, a village needs help with a physician and you can't contact, this is a cell phone, a community cell phone.
Mhm.
Come in, reach a doctor, and you're good to go.
Yeah. Kiosks, yeah.
Yeah.
Kiosks.
So this is Sailfish right here.
Yeah, this is Sailfish 3.3, the latest version that's out.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna fuck around and load it on the Mara phone and just toy with it. This is interesting.
Yeah, if you go to the website, there's a whole
Like a SDK or a download.
there's a wiki on how to run it.
Okay.
I haven't had the opportunity to do it. I still have a couple of phones that haven't, some Asus phones and stuff like that. I could probably run it on in.
That's what I mean. Like if you got an old device, man, like yeah.
Yeah.
Now
But
wait, this could go on a tablet too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, that's what I think. I think I might dig up a tablet and do it.
Yeah, and so if you're looking at the functionality that he's, you know, this person is demonstrating, you can see that how fluid it is. It's not slow. YouTube is on there, right? I thought he was looking at the manosphere with that second.
I was about
video.
to say, yeah, was he loading up a live?
Yeah. I mean, okay, so you're waiting a few seconds. He's using
Okay.
LG, you know, I don't know. Yeah, but
Well, it doesn't look too. Well, he didn't play anything, but
no, I'm just making the point that you can actually use this device. This is how many apps does the average user actually use?
maybe, and I'm being liberal here. 8 to 10, maybe.
That's actually right. That's
Okay.
actually right. Most people use about 8 to 10 apps on their phones. They don't actually use the 100 apps. And so I'm bringing this up because progressive web apps, government services on the continent in Latin America and whatnot, there's a lot of opportunity for growth in these areas. Okay.
How many apps can on this, Mike? You know?
It's unlimited. There's no
okay, all right.
Yeah, there's no limitation to this. But what we were saying was that most users only use about 10 apps on their phone.
Yeah, that's a fact. Yeah, maybe even less than that. But yeah.
Yeah, you use your Gmail, you use your weather app, and you might get news. That's another app. I have multiple credit cards, and so I may log into those credit cards to run payments. But that's the extent of it. I only touch them once a month. So I'm saying the average user, at least from the West perspective, only uses 10 apps. So we shouldn't be shocked about, the ability to have you need to have, access to the app store because there's just so many apps on here. Yeah, a lot of people download apps, but they don't really use them all that frequently unless they want to, play League of Legends or something.
Solitaire.
Yeah, a lot of time wasting and time consuming apps that don't really amount to much. But you see, this has NFC. So you're talking about contactless payments being made.
Bluetooth.
Bird scooters. You want to micro.
Exactly. Micro transport.
Yeah, micro transportation with unlocking device.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, 7 minutes to the SpaceX launch.
Thanks for the heads up.
Wait, are they? Is that the? Is like a simulation? Is it a manned simulation launch?
No, it's an actual launch.
Or they launching actual people?
Yeah.
Oh shit. Okay. Maybe. Okay. I think that's what I caught. They did a simulation. I think that's what it was I saw. But all right. Jesus.
Well, they canceled the first attempt earlier in the week.
Yeah.
And now they're redoing it.
Okay.
Right. I'm not going to go into any more of this, but I'm just making the point that this is a viable operating system. I think, can be exploited, for alternative purposes, man. So many people don't have access to, $1,000 smartphones. It's just not it's not the business. It's not the business. You got a Singaporean guy who's going to the continent saying, I've been trying to get there for a long time. Well, we don't need to go there. Some people will say.
Oh, shit.
This is an app developer. This is a guy who's invested into startups using KaiOS. Okay, that's why KaiOS even brought him in for the interview. It's only a few days ago.
That's why I don't like hearing this shit from these people, man. I mean, because while they sit there and wrangle about, the typical bullshit, right? Business is being conducted. Even
during the pandemic, right?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Even during this shit. I mean, it's kind of like, a lot of us have had to readjust and, I know Anti-Grav and I, we got to just kind of cut ties with a lot of shit. Think about new things to take on because we're in a new environment.
The thing is about what I'm saying about the pandemic is that if you did not have an online presence, you're screwed. You're screwed. And so PWAs create that online presence, creates that digital presence.
Right.
Sailfish OS, KaiOS, offers an alternative to these more inaccessible phones that cost, a year's worth of salary for a single person. How do we bridge the gap? How do we create, consistency, consistency, and close that technological divide. There's so many opportunities for us to really get into this, and that's why I thought engineering cannabis would stay on. But talking about blockchain and KaiOS and Sailfish OS and some of these alternative OSs.
Mhm.
We're talking about security at the compliance level so that you're not being exposed with your cryptocurrencies or your digital currencies and your micro payments and microfinance and stuff like that, micro banking. Making sure that you have global connectivity as well as access to global markets through that one phone. Your progressive web app is if you're a farmer, if you're a person in the marketplace, I may not need to pull out cash. I don't have to go to an ATM or the airport for foreign exchange.
Just accept a mobile payment.
Exact. Tap, NFC is enabled. Tap, I'm done.
Yep.
Goes right into their bank account as soon as they
And you hand your customer your goods.
Yeah.
Some countries are already on that. So
It's
Complex, when are you looking to go out to Kenya?
Shit, man. When all this stuff blows over.
When it blows over, make sure you get out there.
Man, look, dude. You don't have to tell me twice.
Now, Jay, have you been back to Jamaica anytime recently to see what's the technological, what's trending, what's going on over there?
Yeah, I usually go 2-3 times a year, but COVID kind of messed me up this year. But as soon as they stop the quarantine down there, I'm heading back. But yeah, actually, what we're just talking about, there's actually a company. There is a parish in Jamaica called Clarendon, and a company created an app for farmers as a test case just in that parish. It gives them live price updates at markets.
Oh, really?
And it does weather prediction. And it's had really, let me find the article. It's had really good reviews to farmers, so they're trying to expand island wide now.
That's cool. That sounds real dope.
What do they do? They pour it in farmers' almanac data?
I'm not sure about that. I think they just use weather, just weather, meteorology readings. Yeah, data.
Yeah.
Because all that stuff is just captured at the airport anyways, right? And kind of trickle down. Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a very good idea.
And so,
really good idea.
Farmers know the price before they get to market. It helps out a lot. Let me find that article. But yeah, I'm kind of disappointed with how slow the Bank of Jamaica's been accepting cryptocurrency. That's my route in digital payments. Actually, it's funny. COVID has kind of sped up some of these changes.
Well, if you look at
now, it seems like they're making some of the banks take digital currency now.
Well, I was gonna say, if you look at how much money is flowing into the crypto markets right now, I mean, you're gonna respond to the markets, right? So people start saying, "Hey, look,"
Well, Jamaica's kind of a underbanked country.
Yeah.
So they tried it before, and people didn't really accept it. But because of COVID, the government was giving out funds to people, kind of like the stimulus here, and they found that nobody had bank accounts.
Yeah.
So they had to they had these long lines, violating social distancing for people to get their money. So the government was like, "Yo, you guys got to get this digital thing straight." But yeah, I don't know. I think one issue is the money laundering stuff, because the U.S. is being putting pressure on it, especially with the scamming that's been going on recently. So there's just a lot of regulation. You know, like there's been like 3-4 companies that have tried to set up like local exchanges, and it's just been hard for them. Because even me, I was doing a case study on setting up Bitcoin ATMs, like at shopping centers.
Yeah.
But to do that, then you have to register as like a cambio,
Okay.
and you need a certain amount of assets. It gets really complicated.
You know, there's actually there's a gas station like about half a mile down the road from me. There's a Bitcoin ATM inside of there. It's oh god, I can't remember the name.
Liberty?
Huh?
Liberty?
No, it's called Bitcoin something.
Liberty is one of the main Bitcoin ATMs in the country.
Yeah, this one it doesn't have the Liberty name on it. It has like a different name on it. I actually let me look at my phone. Maybe I think I took a picture and sent it to Antigraph. But yeah, I saw it. It was interesting, and I was like, okay, I was gonna see what's up with it. I got a little bit of Bitcoin, so I don't know. I was just gonna like see what this whole thing is about. But yeah, there's one right up the road from me.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty cool actually. I was also looking into. I had a buddy in Uganda about setting some up. Oh, actually, it's funny. So Bitcoin trades for a premium in like Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
So I was like, man, like if we can, but we went through this whole thing to get money out of Zimbabwe is extremely difficult. So you can go there, send Bitcoin, get money, but you can't really pull it out unless you take payment in government bonds or something. So yeah, we were looking into setting up like Bitcoin ATMs like for remittances in Uganda.
Okay. That sounds pretty dope.
Yeah.
Yeah, Uganda seems to be a very forward, progressive country.
Yeah, I don't know. I would say Rwanda is Uganda. They have they need to work on their discipline and corruption. Like when I went from Rwanda to Uganda, across that border, it's like night and day.
It's not the only thing they need to work on.
Yeah, that place is a little backwards in some aspects.
Yeah, tell me about it.
No, this is actually good information, and thanks for dropping that link, the OpenBTS. I had to throw that into the chat, the group chat, for everyone else. But you know, like I said, I think there's an opportunity to build these phones on Sailfish OS. We're talking about smartphones, so smartphone versus feature phone. Okay, KaiOS we can get for $15-25, understandable.
Oh, I think I found it. So when you were on the continent, did you hear any talk about any like native operating systems being developed?
No. Everything was about everything was just about mobile development, agnostic of platform.
Right. So whatever the device, it's really just the device is just basically the thing in your hand. It's really about an ecosystem that's going on that device.
Yeah.
Because one thing that concerns me, I mean, if your software is being developed, you know, outside of your country, you can't control like backdoors. You know, you don't know who's putting backdoors in the OS.
Exactly.
Things like this. So
well, that's kind of where that's kind of where you take it, right? Now you take it and then you basically make it your own. So you're the security suite, everything that was where earlier in the discussion, you know, we were talking about, and that's when Engineering Cannabis was on. We were talking about, okay, what about then getting devices, right? Whether they be, we go to a factory, say like Mara, for example, and get it with nothing on it, okay? And then you have like brand new devices that you're selling with your version of Sailfish, you know, or you have a version that can be preloaded onto a device as long as it meets bare minimum running requirements. But again, it's your Sailfish distro with your security measures on it.
Yeah, you have to take it. Well, I was going to say provide a service with it as well, but the continent operates a little bit differently when it comes to cell phone service. And so I think, yeah, creating a package like that, bringing Android apps in, the necessary Android apps.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, exactly. It's like you literally taking it. I mean, well, it's no, think about it like this. It's no, we talked about this, Mike, some time back. So if you go back to maybe like the 2010s, that, okay, your own Linux distro was like, that was like the thing, right? Everybody was kind of like making their own little snazzy Linux distros, right? Where it had like these crazy user interfaces and then your own suite of apps and all that kind of shit. And I was doing the same thing. I was using SUSE Studio to build my own distros. Okay. It's kind of like that.
Yeah. To a certain extent, because then I don't know if it had the same.
Well, no, this is no, that's what I mean. It's that, dude, doing the SUSE Studio thing, that was rudimentary compared to this. I'm just saying, just comparatively speaking, this is what you would be doing with Sailfish. Similar to what we were doing with SUSE Studio and gosh, I'm trying to remember some of the other ones that was using. Ubuntu kind of came as its own thing, but you had SUSE and there was a couple others where you could actually just customize your own Linux distros.
Yeah, definitely, man. Definitely. This is dope discussion. You know, this is exactly where we need to be at. You know, in terms of tech development. I want to get away from some of this entry level stuff. This is a different level of entry level that we can be discussing as well. Not just working on desktop computers, but actually creating apps.
Well, Mike, I think we've covered so much of it. You know, I don't know. I think going forward now, because there's so much in the like the archives, right? That covers all of those things. I mean, I think we kind of touched on that aspect of it as much as it can be touched on. We can always kind of revert back and source information from that. But yeah, I think going forward though, I think we do need to start maybe pushing it into this realm.
Oh, and by the way, about that, the farming thing I was telling you about, if you go to the Jumpro Facebook page, it's the Jamaica Promotions Corporation page. They're actually looking for people to help develop the agricultural infrastructure in Jamaica. And they're giving out like minimums of 50 acres of land, like all the abandoned sugarcane plantations. So if anybody's interested in farming, I recommend you check that out because they're offering a lot of support.
Complex has a green thumb in more ways than one. He can probably.
I got some land in Texas, man. That's farmland, man. It's prime.
Well, in Jamaica, but for this program, like for example, I have a small farm growing breadfruit, and they provided me a lot of assistance. Like I haven't had to do much except hire people to do stuff.
Is it measured in acres or hectares?
I mean, but it's the same thing, right? I think a hectare is what, like 14 acres or something like that.
Okay.
So
yeah, but I mean, 50 acres.
This is in Jamaica.
Yep, like a lot of the abandoned sugarcane plantations. They're trying to get them back to work, doing something. Remember, Jamaica is not food sufficient. No Caribbean island is. They weren't designed that way. They were designed to export food. So they're trying to, because Jamaica imports $1 billion US of food every year.
So they're looking primarily for food production.
Yep, and for export. Like they gave a presentation, right? So Jamaica is kind of not meeting demand for certain goods. Like for example, yellow yam. I think they said like the demand for yellow yam is like 50 million, and Jamaica only exports like 10 million of yellow yam. The black castor oil, you know, the demand is like this much, and they're only able to export this much. So now you have Indian companies. Selling
that's
castor
why
oil,
the shit is so much.
Castor oil on it.
I was gonna say, and that's why it's so expensive.
Yeah, exactly. So there's just so much like market for like tropical goods that's not being met. So they're trying to get people
to come in and. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, for example, like most of the onions coming into Jamaica are from like China or something.
That's crazy.
What?
Nuts. Yeah, a lot of food. The import bills are $1 billion US. Like we don't produce enough food.
Mhm.
Oh man.
So anybody interested in agriculture, there's a lot of opportunities down there.
Interesting, man. That's interesting stuff, man. I just think that, maybe we might be able to come back in a couple of months and start talking more about app development opportunities, where, where do you, where do you find opportunities to help integrate yourself into some of these markets without actually, being this big, super code developer, things happen small paces at a time. Being a consultant means that you come in there and you kind of align the business interests with certain entities, whether it's the government or people on the ground, so on and so forth. And then you get into the coding after that. This, like I said, that stuff we need to go back, come back later at a later date and kind of revisit this stuff, probably in August or something like that.
Be cool to have like a Black Brain Trust hackathon or something like virtually.
Yeah,
Set up a GitHub page just for the Black Brain Trust. I don't know.
Yeah, no, we were talking about that, but pre-COVID, we were talking about actually doing having a brain trust event, tech,
Actual
wine tasting in tech.
Yep.
So we were talking about doing stuff like that, just trying to find a place, but COVID came in and kind of took that away from us. So,
hey man, maybe we could do it via Zoom.
yeah, but you can't taste the wine together because you don't have access.
Yeah, you just have to. I don't know. I'm just trying to do the.
No, I understand what you're trying to say.
The shit I've been seeing and hearing about that we've been doing. I've been talking with some like people that I do some support for, right? And they're telling me like the Friday nights, or like what they do is when they clock out on Friday, they all get on Zoom and everybody has like their favorite drink, and like people are all like wearing like fucking like Viking helmets and all kind of crazy shit, and they're all just getting drunk on Zoom.
Yeah, no, it's gonna, what we had planned out was gonna be dope. Strain testing and
oh yeah,
and tech. There's a lot of stuff that we were gonna do.
Mike, by the way, man, maybe fire up a cannabis stream tomorrow. I just got some what's this shit called? Oh, Purple Haze.
Yeah,
I just got some Purple Haze, dude. Like literally this morning.
Yeah, I usually try to link the cannabis talks to every month, right? So it's 31st is tomorrow, but
we got something else for tomorrow?
not at the moment. I do have some other things that I was going to be working on, but
okay, well then no, just the next, and then we'll fire one up whenever when we're free.
All right, thank you all for joining us. Please hit the like button if you've already done so, share the video if possible, and thank you to Jay for coming through and dropping those links and that knowledge, as well as engineering cannabis.
Hey Mike, real quick, Space Cowboy saying gonna need that link for some farmland. Can we post that link in the chat?
Is that what Jay posted in the back chat?
Yeah, I think the one that Jay was talking about for.
No,
Okay.
there's like a 3-hour video that on the Jamaica Promotions Corporation's page. I'll dig it up.
Wait, hold on 1 second here.
And
The Jamaican Observer.
no, that's just the app I was telling you about.
Oh, that's the app. That's not the for the farmland. Okay, yeah, he's looking for a link for that farmland stuff.
If you just give me a couple minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll wait for that. No, I thought this was a pretty good discussion to have. Somebody had asked about it before, and I was like, yeah, we'll get back around to that, because people were saying that we should do it again, and I'm like, well, if you just go back to the archive, you can just see it for yourself.
Like, damn, man.
Yeah, before you know it, they'll be asking us to write code for them. So.
Yo, man, that party my neighbors had last night, man, was like, it was like off the chain, dude.
60.
There was cars like parked all up the block. I was like, goddamn.
Mhm.
Yeah. COVID what?
When's the last time you got an update for the Marwalk phone?
Well, I mean, actually, I need to update them, but the COVID-19 stuff happened, and then it was kind of like, all right, let me rethink what we're doing, because like the whole office thing in Kenya had to be put on hold because they were on lockdown there. So, and then there's, I'm not trying to put all my business out there, but what's going on in LA? What's going on in LA right now? My partner's business, and it's just kind of like, damn. That's all you can kind of say about a lot of things right now.
All right, here's the link.
Ignore the audio in the beginning. I don't know what was going on with their mic, but it gets better.
All right, cool.
Wait,
So that link is in the chat for those who asked about it.
wait, did you post it, Mike?
Yeah,
Wait, hold on.
yeah, I posted.
Oh, okay, cool. All right, cool.
You know how some people in this environment, brain trust be in the back chats. They be in the back chat sharing information about agriculture. All right, shalom, everyone.